Come on, baby. We gotta rock and roll is one of the many lines by this crazy-ass killer in Slumber Party Massacre 2. And this is one of those movies that I've always, for a long time, wanted to see. And I watched the first Slumber Party Massacre this last month for October. And I really did enjoy the first Slumber Party Massacre. I thought it was really fun. It was really enjoyable and brutal. And the thing about Slumber Party Massacre 2 is that this is one of the most batshit sequels or horror movies that I've ever seen, because it plays it so seriously with all these characters encountering a serial killer, or I guess just a killer in this movie, that Courtney, the main character in this movie from the last one, who was 12 in the first movie, she keeps dreaming about this killer, and this killer is over the top and insanely silly. It's this rock and roll guy who's got a literal guitar with a drill on the end of it, and he plays his guitar, sings, and he drills people. And it is fucking insane, and I love the fact that this movie exists, and I love the fact and how entertaining this is. I really thought this was one of the coolest, like, one of the most fun horror movies I've ever seen in a long time. It doesn't have to take itself seriously. It just tries to be fun. It just tries to be silly and goofy. It tries to be everything that just makes it overall entertaining. So I love the fact that this movie exists, again. And I love how it connects to the first one, because the character Courtney, like I said, was from the first one. She was a 12-year-old girl in the first one, and now she's 17, I think, because it's 5 years later. And her sister Valerie from the first one, who survived the first one, is now in a mental hospital. And Courtney keeps having these horrible, frightening dreams of this killer. And I love how how tonally it's so funny, because she'll be freaking out, hallucinating, having these scary ass dreams, but then everything that the killer does or anything that she dreams of is hilarious. It's so funny how tonally different her being scared of this killer or something in her nightmare, and then it's so silly. It just cracks me up how these actresses are really good and really play being scared very good, and it is perfect whenever they're against this silly ass killer. And I love that fact about this movie, that it's just so funny tonally. It's so drastically different in everything in the movie, but I think that's what makes it charming and what makes it fun. And I also love that Juliet Cummins is in this movie. She was in Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, and in Psycho 3. I love how she's in all of these horror movies that are pretty big slashers. Like, I think that it's cool that she's in these slasher sequels. Like, I just think that's funny that she just kept making her rounds in the 80s with these three, at least. And she was in a couple other slasher movies that I haven't seen. I've just looked at IMDb and saw she was in a few more, which I have not seen yet, but I like seeing her in this movie. I think it's fun. And I really like how there's this other girl, Sandra, who was in Friday the 13th Part 7. She was in Part 7 as well. And I think that's really cool that, again, they've got another Friday actor in this. Like, that girl in Part 7, I think, wasn't that great, because she was barely in that. Like, Part 7 was the first Friday movie where I was like, okay, it's diminishing returns, where these characters are not very fun or interesting, besides Tina. But that girl is in this movie too, and I think that's awesome that she, again, is in this movie as well as a Friday movie. I just think that's cool that they keep bringing in their own horror alumni into these type of movies. And I like how these girls, this group of girls, are in a band, and it's all women, and it's great. I love seeing that. I think that's really fun, and I think they're actually really good. Their music is pretty good. They're actually really, really great for just like a teenager band. Like, these are just young adults, like, and they're really good, and I really like their music. And I was actually kind of humming along to some of the songs they were playing. So I like that, and I like how whenever it gets to, like, they go to this house that's being like the character, Juliet Cummins' character, I'm blanking on her name now because I saw this a couple days ago, but her character, they all go to her dad's new house that is being, like all their stuff is being moved in there, and it's, there's nobody there, so, like, they all go there and party. And I love the fact that this is directed by a woman who knows that for the most part with slumber parties, this probably doesn't ever happen, maybe every once in a while, but it cracks me up that she did it in a way, this director, she did it in a way where it's so obviously exploitive of like, oh, these girls obviously whenever they're alone, they with having a slumber party, they get naked and they pour champagne over each other and just have pillow fights. Like, it's just so stereotypical, but it's so funny because she goes that route, this director, and I feel bad for not knowing her name because I think she directed the first one as well. But this director is really competent in doing this type of movie. I really enjoyed her a lot, like as this with her directing, and I really like how the first half of the movie is pretty slow, and it's not like it's boring, but there's not much happening. There's very little inklings of like the killer in her dreams, like in Courtney's dreams, but for a while it's just like them having fun, them relaxing and being goofy, and then these two guys come along that are their friends too, and they all just party and have fun, which is totally fine. It's just not as interesting as the second half, which this is just one of those things where it's like it has a build up, but not a build up in a way where it's completely super interesting throughout, but it's enough to keep my attention for this type of movie, for a slasher. So, because there's not much killing through the first half of the movie, it's just them having fun and being dumb. But I enjoyed that as well, just not as much as the end or the second half. And then we get some weird ass dream moments, nightmare moments, where like Courtney starts hallucinating even more that the killer's there, and then she has this weird thing where Sally, the girl who played Sandra in Friday 7, Sally, her character, she's got like this little zit on her face, and then Courtney imagines that she's got these big ass zits just like literally about to pop out of her face, and then her zit pops and pus just flies at the screen. And that's an awesome effect, like a practical effect. And of course this is all practical. It came out in 87, but the effects on this were really good and really amazing. And that moment alone was so incredibly goofy, but it made it so charming. Like, it gave this, again, another charm to this movie, is just being so over the top, but in such a fun way. But it also plays it straight in a lot of ways. That's why I like how it does that as well. But I just think it's funny both ways. It plays it straight, but it plays it very incredibly over the top, but in a perfect balance for me. And then after this is the point where the killer actually appears and he starts killing, and it's insane because this guy, like I said, is just a rock and roll guy dressed up in rock and roll attire, has a literal red guitar with a cool shape, and like it's got a drill on the end of the guitar, and he plays the guitar, sings while he's chasing them, and then he just does slow dances while they're all running away, screaming and freaking out and losing it like any normal person would, but to this killer who's singing and dancing. There's even one moment where the killer, I don't even know if he has a name. I think it said like Killer Driller in like the credits, but there's one scene where like they're all hiding, and what he does is he literally just is in the living room, just starts dancing to himself, starts singing to himself, and it's so fun. It's so hilarious because it's just so out of left field for this insane amount of like silliness from the beginning, which had some silly moments, but it was serious mostly throughout the first half. And then at the half point, it gets insane, and I love that. And that makes the build-up worth it, even though I think it's totally fine in the first half, but it's just not as interesting as the second half for me. And the kills are brutal, and they're basically the same kind of kills every time. Like, he keeps drilling these people with what he's just got that drill guitar, but every time it's so fun and so silly that I don't care if it's the same type of kill every time. It's hilarious, and it genuinely made me laugh and made me go, whoa, this is just insane. Like, I can't believe how fucking insane and amazing this movie is. And as the ending goes along, and I guess I won't spoil it, it's like, it's a slasher movie, so I don't know how I can really not spoil it, but the ending I thought was insane, and I thought they did a weird-ass moment in the last, like, minute of the movie. I was just like, what just happened? Like, this defies everything that just made sense before. But to be fair, in this type of movie, or in this movie in particular, in being super serious and being super silly, this, I didn't know where it would end at, because it's tonally so all over the place, but in a way where it's perfect to me. Like, it's a perfect, fun, insane slasher that's just incredibly fun. all these characters are likable. The music's great. It's just so over the top, but in a way where it's just incredibly rewatchable. And I've only seen this once, the first time, a couple days ago. So I want to watch it again. I want to own it. This one blew me away, just how incredibly fun everything was. The characters, the kills, the killer, the music, everything about it just really was silly. It's so exploitive, but in a way where it's so fun. I really dug the hell out of this movie, and I hope everybody goes and sees this movie. If you haven't and you're a big fan of horror, I recommend it wholeheartedly to go see Slumber Party Massacre 2. Because it blew me away, and I'm gonna watch the third one and review the third one, but I don't know where I could find it besides buying it, and I'll buy it eventually. But it's not on Prime. The first two are on Amazon Prime, but this one isn't. So, or the third one isn't. So we'll see. Whenever I get to the third one, I will. But as of now, this one was awesome. I love this one. So go out and see Slumber Party Massacre 2. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment, like, subscribe if you want to. So thank you guys so much for watching.